Okay, let's get straight into this one. Straight up from the start, apologies. There is some missing footage later on, but I did take a few photos, so hopefully it'll be okay. Anyway, this bedroom is getting gutted out and redone. So to start with, I had to remove these, you'd call them a fitted wardrobe, but they're not really. It was some kind of hodgepodge from the old days where it seemed like everything was using a 6-inch glued-in nail, and it was impossible to take apart. So in the end I resort to just getting a crowbar and ripping it off. I was adamant I wanted to save as much wood as I could, but in the end some things just had to be ripped out. I had a little scrape to see what it was like, and then did the second door. There's far too much arse crack in this video as well, so I do apologise for that. I've tried to cover it where possible. It's unavoidable, I'm afraid. So let's have a look what's underneath this. I'll keep that. Now, I've got my wife and my mother-in-law stripping the walls, ready for painting, and you'll see them bobbing around whilst I'm removing the rest of this fitted carcass. Now, we're not taking the wallpaper off the ceiling because it's lath plaster, and we didn't want it all coming down and adding another 500 quid on the budget, so I'm trying to get rid of this as carefully as possible. I'd recently bought a multi-tool and never used it, so this was my chance, but geez, what sort of noise do they make? Awful. Anyway, there's a potential death coming up here. My mother-in-law has her back turned just off screen. I don't think it's an issue, but oh, it was so close to hitting her. That's me telling my wife, don't tell her. So, just a lot more ripping up and breaking up and ripping up this old plinth. I'm frantically measuring that gap because I think the wardrobes that we've ordered won't fit, and they don't, but that's another story. So that was day one. Now on to day two, which in reality was about 4 days later when I was off work. And because the wardrobe was so tight, I decided to remove over 1 inch of plaster and replace it with 9mm of plasterboard. Because it was so tight, I really thought these extra millimetres would matter. As it turns out, it didn't. I've had a right nightmare with it, and I'm still working it out sort of now, but anyway, this is quite a fun job, therapeutically removing the plaster, which funnily enough was the first ever labouring job I got when I did labouring at uni for a local builder who was a bit of a Phil Mitchell character, and there's some stories there, but not for now. So I'll remove all the plaster from this brickwork with a bolster chisel and a hammer, or as we call it in the Black Country, an hammer. And then I'll get the world's smallest brush to apply some PVA to bond the wall. Off camera, I'll cut this plasterboard and then draw a line up just to see how much I need to shave off, which I do using a plasterboard rasp. I think that's what they're called, one of these. Now there were several ways I could have stuck it to the wall, but I chose this plasterboard adhesive foam because it was only this little bit, and you had to cover 1/3 of the area. Now when I put this on Instagram, someone joked, did you use the whole can? But I suppose I just wanted to make sure that it stuck, and it does. It's brilliant once it goes off. rock solid. Now you leave it in this state for 5 minutes and then you press it to the wall like so, but obviously you only have 2 pairs of hands, so I was sort of like trying to figure out how I can press it to the top and the middle and the bottom and keep it stuck to the wall. There I am pretending it's flush and level. So yeah, I construct all sorts of things here. I try and keep it pressed in at the top while I push the middle, and then I decide no, I'll use the spirit level to keep the bottom and I'll go up the ladder to press in the top. I don't think any of this really mattered because very quickly it went off, and then it was time to do the panelling. Now this is where some of the footage goes missing, but I built this frame and painted the areas that would be seen black, and now it was just a simple case of attaching to the wall. The issue I had, I used 3x2s, so I think that's about 68mm are they? I only had screws up to about 90, I may have had 100mm, but they just weren't enough. By the time you go through the plaster, there's not enough grippage, and I have a right game with it. I should have really had like screws that were a lot longer, at least 125, but I persevere and put a lot of grab adhesive on the reverse of this framing. And faff around like an idiot trying to attach it until I call in a bit of help from my wife. But really the issue is the screws just weren't long enough, so they weren't penetrating the brick sufficiently to hold. So even with a helping hand, I'm struggling, and obviously I don't want to look like an idiot. I like to look like I know what I'm doing. So I decide a different plan is needed, and I end up drilling through the ply, which is 18mm, at 4 points there, and that means once I've put on a load of grab adhesive again, this will hold it flush to the wall through those holes, and when the grab adhesive goes off it's all fine. It's not holding any real weight. Modern TVs are pretty light and the panelling was very light, so I fill the holes, paint them later, and start to thread all the cables through before putting the panelling on. But unbeknownst to me, that was the last bit of footage I got. Now there is some footage coming up, but it's mainly photos and a video at the end, but I'll talk you through it. So luckily I took a few photos for Instagram, so with the wall up I could use these panels. Now they're a felt back with Oak Vaneered MDF, and I had 2 halves so I could cut the apertures with a jigsaw and a straight edge, and it went really quick and it was quite easy. I attached it to the carcass with black drywall screws on the black felt bit so you can't see, and there it is in situ, and that bit went really well. I also had to fudge some skirting out of floorboards because they don't do the profile that I needed anymore. Now because I had some excess, I did plan to go around and fill these little gaps around the edge. In reality you won't see them when the wardrobes are in, but I just wanted them filled up, which I did. That's where the skybox will go, and I do build a little shelf for it, as you can see here, from the offcuts of the panelling, and this is how it looks as of now, with the wardrobes either side and the TV mounted, and I'm just glad it's done. I hope this has been helpful. Sorry about the missing footage, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.